The story opens on the busy Luocheng pedestrian street, then shifts to the exterior of a management company. Inside a dim office, a man lights a cigarette and asks a visitor if he truly understands what it means to borrow 5 million yuan. He is revealed to be Jiang Yang, boss of the Dahai gang, and an underground loan shark. Surrounded by guards, the young man sits nervously as Jiang warns him about the brutal interest rates. With no other option left, Chung agrees to accept any terms. Jiang lays out the conditions clearly. A 4% daily interest rate, with 7 million yuan to be repaid in 6 months, as long as an IOU is signed and collateral of equal value is provided. The borrower hands over a commercial housing contract. After checking it, Jiang bluntly states that the aging property is not worth 5 million. Forced to compromise, the young man lowers his request to 4 million, claiming his luck has turned and he will easily earn the money back. Seeing an exploitable gambler, Jiang counters with a final offer of 3.5 million. The deal is accepted without hesitation. New terms are set: 4.9 million must be repaid in 3 months, or the house will be seized. Jiang promises the money will be transferred within 3 days. Before leaving, Cheng adds one final condition, briefly catching Jiang's interest. Soon after, the agreement is finalized, and the guards escort him out. Outside, he checks his phone and confirms the 3.5 million yuan transfer. As he walks away, he mocks the loan shark internally, revealing the truth: an apocalypse will descend in 1 month, and the debt will never be repaid. With the money secured, he prepares carefully, determined to avoid the suffering he endured in his past life. He recalls how a terrifying catastrophe once struck Blue Star. Intense solar radiation drove global temperatures up to 50 degrees, plunging the world into a 30-day apocalypse filled with ruin and monstrous beasts. That disaster completely destroyed his previous life. Back inside the office, Zhang Yang ridicules the borrower as a reckless gambler desperate for fast cash. When a subordinate questions whether obtaining a 4 million yuan house for just 3.5 million seems suspicious, Zhang dismisses the concern. He coldly orders his men to rig the casino results, planning to drain the borrower's funds, seize the house, and eventually sell the young man himself. On the other side, the protagonist walks alone through the evening streets. He glances at his phone with a faint smirk, mocking the loan shark for transferring the money so quickly out of greed. He reveals that he has spent the entire day taking loans from different places across the city and has no intention of repaying a single cent. His confidence comes from knowing what the future holds. He recalls the apocalyptic nightmare where the earth dried up, society collapsed, and resources became more valuable than money. In that timeline, even former billionaires were reduced to begging for water or dying miserably. Grateful for his rebirth, Cheng realizes he has just enough time left to stockpile supplies before the disaster arrives. As he steps into a busy venue to begin his preparations, something ahead catches his attention. He notices a display for the Shuigao Assassin, a notoriously expensive luxury ice cream. The sight triggers an unpleasant memory from his past life, when he struggled to buy the same ice cream for Liu Wanqing, only to realize later that it was a complete waste. This time, he decides to spend money only on himself. He walks to the counter and casually orders 10 of every flavor available. The sudden demand shocks nearby customers, who whisper among themselves, while the clerk hesitates, clearly doubting he can afford such an order. The clerk warns that the bill will exceed 20,000 yuan. A red-haired woman nearby scoffs at his plain appearance and arrogantly declares that she will kowtow in public if he can really pay. Hearing this, Cheng turns with a sharp smile, calmly accepting the bet and making it clear she will not escape the consequences of her words. He then shows his phone to the stunned clerk, revealing a balance of more than 20 million yuan. Pushing things further, he changes his order and states that he wants to buy every single ice cream in the shop. When the manager arrives to handle the situation, he instructs him to calculate the total value of the entire inventory, effectively buying out the store for the day. Manager Fei estimates the total stock to be worth around 1 million yuan. Seeing it as a small price for future comfort, Cheng immediately transfers a 300,000 yuan deposit and arranges for all the ice cream to be delivered to his safe house. Turning to the excited crowd, he announces that every woman in the store can enjoy free ice cream on his tab. He then coldly singles out the red-haired woman, reminding her that she is the only exception and that he is still waiting for her promised kowtow. True to the bet, the arrogant woman ends up sobbing on the floor in humiliation. Chen looks down at her, making it clear that she brought this disgrace upon herself. Later, Chen sits quietly on a bench and finally enjoys the luxury ice cream he won, finding the taste genuinely impressive. While eating, he activates his hidden trump card, a supernatural spatial dimension. Inside this space, time is completely frozen, meaning any supplies stored there will never spoil. The realization excites him. In the coming apocalypse, controlling fresh food will allow him to control people themselves. Chen soon confirms that his supernatural ability has been reborn along with him. This is highly unusual, since such powers normally awaken only after the apocalypse begins. Understanding how valuable this advantage is, he identifies it as his greatest trump card. He calmly plans his next steps, building a secure safe house and stocking it with weapons and energy resources. His thoughts are interrupted by an incoming call from Liu Wanqing. As he stares at her name on the screen, memories surface. After his parents died, she appeared in his life like a savior. But now, Chen recognizes how foolish he once was. The woman he treated as his guiding light was nothing more than a manipulator who wanted his family's inheritance. He recalls how Liu Wanqing endlessly drained his money, demanding a luxury apartment and an enormous bride price while pressuring him to sell his ancestral home. When the apocalypse arrived, Chen risked everything to protect her. In return, she betrayed him without hesitation, offering him up as special material to gain favor with a powerful backer. Treated like livestock, Chen was eventually devoured by a monster, dying a brutal death that left no trace behind. Chen answers the call with a cold expression, deciding that since Liu Wanqing has reached out, it is time to settle old debts. At a high-end hotel, Wanqing answers the phone while wearing a bathrobe. She immediately spins a lie, claiming she lost a precious gold necklace while out with friends, and is heartbroken over it. Playing along, Chen casually says he will buy her a new one, then adds that he will buy 10 so she can rotate them. Shocked by his sudden generosity, Wanqing asks how he can afford it. Chen calmly lies, saying he recently made a profit investing in virtual currency and wants to spend it on her. When she questions whether he has been scammed, Chen brushes it off with a dark smile, claiming he plans to go all in next time to prove his success. Chen tells Wanqing that he plans to borrow more capital for an investment but needs a witness to secure the loan. To tempt her, he offers a 5% commission for helping him sign the papers. At the hotel, Wanqing is currently with an elderly rich man, enduring it all for a mere 5,000 yuan. Compared to the huge profit Chen promises, the difference is obvious. Convinced that her ex-boyfriend is too timid to ever deceive her, she ignores any risk and eagerly agrees to cooperate. Chen ends the call with a cold smile, knowing his revenge has already begun. He then turns his attention to survival and meets a contractor outside his property. He orders the man to transform the building into an unbreakable fortress within 1 month, making it fully prepared for the coming apocalypse. Chen lists his strict requirements for the safe house: bulletproof glass, earthquake-resistant walls, and a self-sufficient power supply with advanced air filtration. The contractor is baffled by the demands and secretly mocks Chen as a paranoid rich man obsessed with doomsday fantasies. However, when Chen questions his professionalism as a bunker expert, the contractor senses an opportunity for huge profit. He pretends to worry about the budget, only to be silenced when Chen immediately transfers a 1 million yuan deposit. With the money in hand, Chen tells him to set the final price and insists the project must be completed in exactly 1 month. Delighted by the unlimited budget, the contractor secretly plans to exploit what he believes is a foolish client and secure lifelong wealth. As they shake hands, both men hide their true intentions. The contractor plans to overcharge, while Chen knows the apocalypse will make any final payment meaningless. With construction underway, Chen moves to the next step of his plan. He reflects that when order collapses, human nature becomes more dangerous than any natural disaster, making weapons essential. While cold weapons are easy to obtain, firearms are what he truly needs. He contacts a black market dealer, who quickly responds and tells him to meet at a secret location at exactly 8 p.m. On his way to the meeting point, the quiet night is shattered by chaos. A terrified woman runs down the street, chased by 3 men, shouting threats and insults. They soon catch up, and their bald leader angrily accuses her of cheating in his territory and courting death. Panicked, the woman rushes behind Chen, clinging to him and begging for protection. Chen freezes when he sees her face, instantly recognizing her as Li Yu, and is shocked to see how she has ended up in such danger. The pursuers brutally grab the woman, yanking her by the hair as she screams in pain. As Chen gets a clear look at her face, he suddenly realizes who she is: Li Yu. He remembers her as the famous academic goddess from their middle school days, admired by countless boys. The contrast between her past brilliance and her current desperation leaves him momentarily silent. One of the thugs tightens his grip on Li Yu's hair, demanding money, and crudely suggesting she pay with her body if she cannot. Chen steps forward with a cold expression and orders them to let her go. The blonde thug laughs at his attempt to play hero and rushes at him, throwing a vicious punch meant to cripple him. Chen's eyes flash red as he calmly dodges the attack and counters in one swift motion, grabbing the thug and slamming him hard into the ground. Without effort, Chen twists the attacker's arm and pins him down as the man screams in agony. At that moment, a mysterious interface appears before Chen, informing him that he has unlocked a negative emotion harvesting system. Powered by the fear and pain around him, Chen is stunned, realizing this is an ability he never had in his previous life. Before he can think further, another gang member panics and grabs Li Yu, using her as a hostage and threatening to kill her if Chen moves. Suddenly, a brick flies through the air and smashes into the thug's face, forcing him to release her. A man in a floral shirt steps in, mocking the gang for picking on a helpless woman. Furious, the bald leader swings a metal pipe at the newcomer, but the man blocks it effortlessly and retaliates with a heavy kick. At the same time, Chen calmly avoids a sneak attack from the last thug. In a brief exchange, the floral-shirted man sends one thug flying, while Chen neutralizes the rest. With the gang crushed and sprawled on the ground, Chen coldly tells them to get lost. The thugs flee in terror, their fear and humiliation surging. As they escape, the system absorbs their intense negative emotions. A notification appears, confirming the value has exceeded 10 points and instantly unlocking a major upgrade and expansion of Chen's supernatural storage space. Intrigued by the system's effects, Chen turns to Li Yu. She thanks him for saving her, then quickly excuses herself and leaves. The stranger then introduces himself as Mu Qiang, and Chen immediately realizes he is the black market contact he was supposed to meet. Amused by the coincidence, Mu Qiang strikes a pose and recites their verification code. Chen deliberately replies with an insult instead of the correct response, triggering the system to harvest Mu Qiang's confusion and embarrassment. Chen then laughs it off as a joke and calmly gives the proper countersign, allowing the deal to proceed. Mu Qiang leads Chen to a hidden house and shows him a solid Russian handgun, warning that ammunition is limited. After witnessing Chen's fighting ability, Mu Qiang offers him a special friendship prize. Chen checks the gun, then boldly asks for a free suppressor, a warranty card, and extra bullets. Mu Qiang is left stunned and irritated, internally raging that a black market deal is being treated like a normal store purchase. Anger surges through Mu Qiang, feeding even more negative emotion into Chen's system. Realizing he has pushed too far, Chen immediately drops the demands, transfers the agreed payment, and secures the weapon and ammunition. The scene then shifts to a luxury building, where a woman in a red dress stands by the window, quietly watching the city lights. When Chen arrives, Wanqing complains about the delay, and asks again if everything is safe. Pretending affection, Chen reassures her that it is just a simple formality. Confident in her own judgment and convinced Chen is still blindly devoted to her, she sets her doubts aside. Inside the office, Zhang Yang praises her while she signs the documents. However, his thoughts reveal the truth. Although Wanqing believes she is only acting as a witness, her signature has transferred the entire debt onto her name. Zhang Yang smirks, already anticipating her collapse. As Liu Wanqing signs with smug confidence, Chen watches quietly, satisfied with the trap he has laid. To him, the contract is nothing more than a modern indenture, and her greed has unknowingly paid the final cost for his survival preparations. Later, outside his reinforced home, the contractor proudly announces that the renovations are complete. He claims the structure now meets military standards, featuring blast resistance and extreme heat insulation, even against nuclear-level threats. With everything finished, Chen enters his stronghold. Sitting alone in his living room, he watches the news as reports of abnormal solar flare activity spread across the world, confirming that the apocalypse has officially begun. Inside the Safehouse, emergency news broadcasts warn of non-stop extreme heat waves sweeping across the globe. Chen tightens his grip on the pistol and calmly mutters that the long-awaited moment has finally arrived. He walks to the reinforced window, weapon in hand, and watches as a massive solar flare swallows the horizon. He silently observes as the apocalypse officially begins. The news confirms the disaster, reporting that violent solar activity is driving global temperatures toward a deadly 60 degrees Celsius. From within his fortress, Chen knows this unbearable heat is only the opening stage. Outside, the city descends into chaos almost instantly. Residents struggle on their balconies, already overwhelmed by the scorching temperatures. Seizing the opportunity, a local shopkeeper loudly promotes his goods, warning that water and electricity rationing are imminent. While urging people to stock up, he secretly revels in the profits the crisis will bring him. At a fruit stand, a woman tries to bargain over the price of melons. The shop owner, Li Dafu, eyes the female customers shamelessly, offering them a discount and crudely inviting them to his home to enjoy air conditioning. The women awkwardly turn him down. Moments later, when two men attempt to haggle over bottled water, Li Dafu's attitude instantly turns hostile. He shouts them down and refuses to negotiate. Passing by, Chen notices the scene and recognizes the merchant's true nature with a cold gaze. Inside the shop, Li Dafu corners a timid boy who had merely picked up a dropped package. Taking advantage of the situation, he loudly accuses the child of stealing and grips his wrist, parading him before the crowd as a criminal. The frightened boy desperately explains that he was only returning the item, but Lee Dafu ignores him. Mocking the boy's worn clothes, the shopkeeper threatens to drag him to the police unless he pays immediately. The surrounding crowd blindly criticizes the child and his parents, while Chen steps inside. Chen casually picks up a bag of chips and asks sarcastically whether the absurd 50 yuan price means they are made of gold or can prevent heatstroke. The remark instantly angers Li Dafu, feeding Chen's system with negative emotions. The shopkeeper snatches the chips back and yells at Chen to leave if he cannot afford them. Chen absorbs the man's growing irritation, smirks, and issues a quiet warning that with so much hoarded wealth, Li Dafu should be careful his treasures do not disappear overnight. Li Dafu explodes in rage, threatening violence and accusing Chen of losing his mind from the heat. Calm and unmoved, Chen cuts him off, casually asking whether he has been suffering from insomnia, weak legs, and night sweats lately. Caught off guard, Li Dafu pauses and admits he has been experiencing those symptoms, nervously wondering if there is something wrong with the feng shui of his warehouse. Chen steps closer and examines his face, pointing out his darkened forehead and unfocused eyes. With a faint smirk, he confidently concludes that Li Dafu is suffering from a serious physical deficiency. Li Dafu explodes in anger at the insult, but Chen simply turns and walks away. Casually tossing a coin behind him, he mockingly advises the shopkeeper to control his temper, warning that excessive rage could lead to an early death. As the system absorbs Li Dafu's fury, the scene fades into the quiet of the night. Watching a stray cat slip into the darkness, Chen reflects on how he endured bullying in his past life. He vows that in this timeline, he will no longer suppress his anger and will reclaim everything he is owed with interest. Chen immediately puts the shopkeeper's anger to use. He spends the harvested negative emotion points to upgrade his system, expanding his supernatural storage space by 200 cubic meters. With the increased capacity, he activates his spatial ability and carries out his earlier warning. The next day, Li Dafu arrives at his shop and freezes in shock. Standing in the middle of the store, he stares in disbelief as he realizes every shelf is completely empty. His greed instantly turns into despair as he screams, demanding to know who stole his entire inventory. Inside his safe house, Chen watches Li Dafu's breakdown through a surveillance feed. As the system harvests a massive wave of negative emotions from the merchant's misery, Chen calmly drinks a cold soda, savoring both the refreshing taste and his quiet revenge. Li Dafu rages through the empty aisles, shouting in madness before collapsing in despair, unable to accept the loss. Around him, people speculate that he may have staged the incident himself to raise prices. When whispers spread about a strange shadow seen floating through the shop at night, Li Dafu's anger shifts into pure terror, fearing he has been haunted. Blending into the crowd, Chen casually eats chips and observes everything unfold as the system continuously absorbs Li Dafu's anger and suspicion. To push him over the edge, Chen deliberately munches on another bag of chips in front of the distraught shopkeeper, loudly praising the smell. Li Dafu stiffens when he recognizes the packaging. It is unmistakably from his own missing stock. Chen twists the knife by repeating his earlier taunt, casually asking if the chips are made of gold. The words push Li Dafu over the edge. He lunges forward, grabbing Chen violently and screaming that Chen is the thief who stole his goods and now dares to flaunt them in front of him. Li Dafu clutches Chen by the collar, furious at the sight of him eating what looks like his missing stock. Completely calm, Chen asks for proof and mockingly offers the half-eaten bag of chips as compensation for the empty shelves. Although burning with rage, Li Dafu quickly calculates that even without evidence, he can still frame Chen and extort money to recover his losses. Chen immediately turns the situation around by raising his voice and addressing the crowd. He questions whether the desperate shopkeeper is simply trying to blame a random customer, pointing out that chips are sold everywhere. The crowd hesitates, still uneasy about the coincidence but no longer fully on Li Dafu's side. Seizing the moment, Chen proposes a wager to settle the dispute once and for all. He invites Li Dafu to search his home, promising to pay 10 times the value of any stolen goods if they are found. In return, if nothing turns up, Chen demands ownership of Li Dafu's backup generator. Certain he will expose the thief, Li Dafu angrily agrees. When they arrive at Chen's residence, the crowd is stunned by the sheer luxury of the place. While everyone marvels at the hidden wealth, Li Dafu rushes inside and frantically searches every corner, unable to understand how a young man like Chen could afford such opulence. Inside the apartment, Li Dafu finds only a fully stocked refrigerator and a safe filled with gold bars. There is no trace of his stolen inventory. Ashamed, he tries to retreat quietly. Chen stops him and calmly reminds him of their wager. Li Dafu attempts to beg his way out, asking for mercy, but Chen coldly rejects him, pointing out that Li showed none when he tried to frame him earlier. The crowd immediately sides with Chen, condemning the merchant's shameless behavior and agreeing that he brought this outcome upon himself. Humiliated and cornered, Li Dafu snaps and tries to strike Chen. In an instant, Chen counters, brutally twisting the shopkeeper's wrist. Li Dafu collapses in agony as the system absorbs a surge of pain from his suffering. Unable to endure it, Li Dafu hastily surrenders, promising to move the generator immediately. Chen releases him with a calm warning to hurry before the outside heat becomes fatal. As the broken merchant scrambles to comply, Chen silently mocks Li Dafu's bleak future without electricity. Satisfied as the system collects one final wave of fear and humiliation, Chen receives a frantic video call from Liu Wanqing, who complains that debt collectors have been following her for the past 2 days. She angrily demands an explanation, asking why the Dahai gang is targeting her and accusing Chen of tricking her into signing the contract. Putting on a wounded expression, Chen pretends to be deeply hurt and questions why she still doubts him after all the money he spent on her. While maintaining his innocent act, he notes internally that the gang is moving faster than he expected. Chen calmly asks whether the gang knows her current location. When Wanqing says she managed to shake them off but still suspects him, he dismisses her worries and suggests she is being paranoid. Her anger suddenly turns to shock when she notices a freshly prepared gourmet meal of grilled salmon on Chen's table. Stunned that he can enjoy such food during the crisis, she questions him. Chen casually drinks a soda and boasts that his supplies are more than enough. Sitting alone, Wanqing realizes that with the endless heatwave, food has become a luxury only the wealthy can afford. Seeing Chen's stockpile, she begins to wonder if he truly has made a fortune. Chen deliberately takes a bite of the fresh salmon and enjoys his cold drink, commenting on how perfect the meal is for the hot weather. Watching him eat, Wanqing is overwhelmed by hunger and envy. When Chen asks whether she has enough food, her tone instantly changes, and she pleads that she is terrified of being alone. Continuing her act, Wanqing claims the debt collectors are still nearby and asks to stay at Chen's place for a few days, hinting suggestively that she can keep him company. Disgusted by her behavior, Chen hides his feelings and agrees. He says he will pick her up in the evening, when the heat eases. When he mentions that she used to hide her address from him, she brushes it aside and calls him her protector. She sends her location, convinced she has found safety, unaware she is stepping straight into Chen's trap.
The woman stands in front of the mirror, calmly observing her reflection. Her posture and expression show confidence as she adjusts herself, fully aware of her appearance and the attention it draws. She settles onto the bed, placing her hand down with ease. The relaxed movement highlights her control over the situation, setting a quiet but deliberate tone. A man kneels before her, carefully attending to her feet while she sits comfortably above him. She allows it without hesitation, treating his actions as something natural and expected. Later, she reclines with a lighter in hand, watching the flame with a faint smile. Her calm gaze reflects her belief that only a carefree, indulgent life is worth living. A sudden knock interrupts her quiet moment. She turns toward the door, surprised by the urgency, clearly not expecting anyone to arrive so early. When she opens the door, she greets the visitor with a composed smile and casually questions the timing. Her tone remains light, as if she is trying to keep control of the situation. As she looks closer, her expression changes. Her eyes tense and a drop of sweat forms, signaling that she has realized something is wrong. Moments later, several men stand before her inside the room. Shocked, she questions how they found her location, realizing her private life has just been exposed. The man demands repayment of the money owed to his group, making it clear that it must be returned immediately. His tone leaves no room for negotiation. She panics and hurriedly explains that the money was borrowed by Chen Zhao, who deceived her into signing the agreement. She insists she was tricked and urges them to go after him instead. Ignoring her explanation, the man shoves the contract in her face and points out that her signature is clearly written in black and white. He snaps at her to stop making excuses. With no patience left, he orders his men to search the room and seize anything valuable. The situation escalates as her words are completely dismissed. The men begin tearing the room apart, knocking things over as they search aggressively. She shouts for them to stop and insists she is calling Chen Zhao to come back immediately. Unbothered by her warning, the leader lounges on the couch while the bags and jewelry are dumped out in front of him. He casually inspects the items, treating the chaos as routine. She stands frozen nearby, clutching herself in fear as her belongings are laid bare. The man dismisses the haul, remarking that the valuables barely cover the interest. With a cold smirk, he lifts one of the bags, clearly unsatisfied. His reaction makes it clear that this is far from over, and the pressure on her is only beginning. The leader reminds his men that they came all this way and cannot leave empty-handed. His words make it clear that walking away without payment is not an option. She desperately tries to stop them, insisting the money is not with her and begging them not to escalate the situation. Her voice carries panic as she shifts the blame elsewhere. The man listens in silence, his expression slowly turning into a knowing smirk. He studies her reaction, clearly unconvinced by her explanation. She hurriedly adds that Chen Zhao has supplies and will return soon, urging them to wait and demand the money from him instead. The tension thickens as her last hope hangs on his arrival. Under pressure, she quickly pulls out her phone and dials Chen Zhao, hoping to resolve the situation before it gets worse. The call fails immediately, and a recorded message informs her that the number is currently unavailable. Her grip tightens as unease sets in. She tries again, staring at the screen while it rings without an answer. Each second of silence deepens her anxiety. Lowering the phone, she admits that no one is answering. Her expression reveals growing fear as her last option slips away. She stares at her phone in disbelief, struggling to understand why the call isn't going through. Confusion and doubt creep into her expression. Trying to stay calm, she claims Chen Zhao must be busy and didn't hear the phone. She insists she will call again, hoping to delay what's coming. The leader suddenly explodes, grabbing her clothes and calling her foolish for trusting Chen Zhao. He bluntly states that Chen Zhao never intended to repay the money. Stunned by the accusation, she freezes in shock. The realization begins to sink in, leaving her speechless as the situation turns even darker. The leader suddenly grabs her, tightening his hold as she struggles and demands to be released. His grip makes it clear he has no intention of letting her go. Panicking, she shouts for them to find Chen Zhao instead, insisting he is the one who has what they want. Her plea comes out desperate and strained. She is dragged across the floor as her screams echo through the room. The men loom over her, completely ignoring her resistance. The door slams shut with force, cutting off any chance of escape. The situation turns dire as she is left trapped with no one coming to help. Her phone slips from her hand and shatters on the floor, the screen cracking as her cries cut off mid-call. Panic peaks as her last connection is destroyed. Elsewhere, Chen Zhao sits calmly in a quiet room, holding a glass of wine while working on his laptop. His phone lies nearby, ignored and silent. He casually swirls the drink and remarks that Liu Mingjing has good taste, treating the chaos he caused as nothing more than entertainment. Outside, the night city stands indifferent and still. The contrast makes it clear that while she is trapped in despair, he remains untouched and completely at ease. She collapses in the corner, sobbing uncontrollably as fear and regret overwhelm her. The room feels smaller as her situation fully sinks in. The leader turns away for a moment, listening while she cries behind him. Her breakdown only confirms how helpless she has become. He casually sets his cup down, his interest suddenly sharpened by something she mentioned earlier. The shift in his expression signals a new idea forming. Leaning close, he grips her chin and demands details about Chen Zhao's place and the valuables there. Her tears continue as she realizes she may have just revealed her next nightmare. Breaking down, she blurts out details about Chen Zhao's place, mentioning air conditioning, cold drinks, and plenty of food. Her words spill out as desperation takes over. She adds that his home has everything, clinging to the idea that sending them there might spare her. Each sentence sounds more frantic than the last. The leader's eyes narrow as interest hardens into a decision. He orders his men to go find Chen Zhao, declaring him the real target. She insists she has nothing left to give, her strength nearly gone. As he looks down at her coldly, it becomes clear that her fate no longer matters to them. She is thrown onto the bed and left there, completely drained and unable to resist anymore. The room falls silent as her fate is sealed. The leader stands back, calmly adjusting himself while looking down at her. A satisfied smile spreads across his face as he confirms his decision. With a mocking tone, he signals his men and announces it's time to move. His focus has fully shifted away from her. The door closes behind them as they leave the room behind. The mess and silence remain, marking the end of her ordeal and the beginning of their next target. Left alone in the ruined room, she curls up on the bed, clutching the torn sheets as her body trembles. The silence presses in, heavier than before. Tears fall as the truth finally settles. The betrayal she tried to deny now feels undeniable and absolute. The scene opens on a quiet city street at night, showing an empty road lined with buildings, creating a tense and uneasy atmosphere as something dangerous approaches. Heavy footsteps echo as a man steps forward with confidence, his polished shoes hitting the ground sharply, signaling that the group has reached their destination. A group of men walks together while discussing their target, explaining that the beast named Zio lives here and has plenty to eat and drink, but is extremely stingy and never shares even basic necessities. One of the men smirks and reassures the others that once they get what they want, there will be plenty of benefits for them, making their intentions clear as they move closer. The boy eagerly thanks Brother Jiang, praising his generosity and saying it is no surprise he could become a big boss, while acting overly obedient in front of him. Brother Jiang casually tells the boy that helping him is no big deal, and even offers him a place to live, pretending to be kind as the people behind him watch silently. From above, the group is seen standing in the middle of the road near a parked car, confirming they have fully surrounded the area and are in control of the situation. Brother Jiang looks down with a sharp expression and senses something unusual, quietly realizing that this kid is not as simple as he appears. The group arrives in front of the apartment building at night, spreading out as they face the entrance while one man steps forward, ready to force his way inside. A muscular man confidently volunteers to kick the door down, boasting in front of Brother Jiang as he charges ahead without hesitation. The moment his foot hits the ground, blue electric sparks suddenly surge around his shoe, shocking him instantly and stopping his attack mid-motion. As he screams in pain and collapses, the others freeze in shock, realizing that the target's place is protected and far more dangerous than they expected. The man collapses on the ground, convulsing from the shock, while one of his companions angrily curses him for failing at such a simple task. As someone tries to grab and pull him away, electric sparks spread further, showing that direct contact only worsens the situation. A terrifying shadowy figure forms within the crackling electricity, making the man scream for help as the power overwhelms him completely. The rest of the group stares in horror, their expressions shifting from arrogance to fear as they realize they have triggered something far beyond their control. As the electricity fades, a strange sound echoes through the night, drawing everyone's attention upward toward the rooftop. Brother Jiang and the boy look up in confusion, both clearly stunned as they struggle to understand what just activated. A loudspeaker on the roof suddenly turns on, its mechanical noise cutting through the silence as an unfamiliar voice begins to speak. The message calmly talks about good luck, blessings, and prosperity, making the situation even more unsettling as the group realizes this power is deliberate and controlled. The electric field surges again, blasting the trapped man with another wave of lightning as his screams echo through the street. Brother Jiang reacts in shock, swearing as he instinctively pulls back while the others hesitate, unsure whether to attack or retreat. Invisible systems register the group's fear, recording rising shock, panic, and speechlessness as the situation spirals out of control. From a safe distance, the mastermind calmly observes through a monitoring setup, explaining that they stepped directly onto a protective electric grid, confirming this was all planned. Brother Jiang angrily points at Chen Zio and demands he return the money, saying debts are a matter of principle and insisting they settle everything on the spot. One of the men mocks Chen Zio, accusing him of having money to renovate his place but refusing to pay his debts, openly questioning how he was raised. Inside the apartment, Chen Zio calmly sits back, casually holding a popsicle and watching the situation unfold without any sign of panic. He coolly states that the market price of his apartment is 4 million, making it clear that their demand for 3.5 million is insignificant to him. Chen Zio calmly rejects the accusation, saying that Liu Wangqing's debt has nothing to do with him, and they should take the issue up with her directly. Brother Jiang explodes in anger, sweating and shouting as he realizes the situation is slipping out of his control. Chen Zio warns that a wise man knows when to back down, suggesting they leave peacefully while he is still in a good mood. He casually presses a red button and coldly adds that if they keep looking for trouble, he will no longer be polite. The electric trap intensifies, and the man trapped inside screams in agony as the current surges violently through his body. A glowing, skull-like electric figure manifests within the lightning, terrifying the group as one of them shouts that they can't hold on any longer. Enraged, Brother Jiang steps forward gripping his weapon, his face twisted with fury as he prepares to retaliate. As the gang charges and threatens Chen Zio, the system detects a spike in anger, confirming the situation has fully escalated into open hostility. Brother Jiang's face twists with fear and frustration as he realizes the situation has completely slipped beyond his control. Outside, the apartment building is shown looming under an ominous red glow, signaling that something dangerous is still active around the area. The system registers the environment heating up rapidly, displaying an extreme temperature warning as the street below becomes unsafe. Meanwhile, Chen Zio relaxes inside his apartment, casually enjoying his food and calling it refreshing, completely unfazed by the chaos unfolding outside. News broadcasts warn that heatstroke deaths are increasing across the city, urging residents to stay indoors as extreme temperatures continue to rise. Inside his apartment, Chen Zio calmly looks at his phone, unfazed by the warnings or the chaos happening outside. Messages flood the community group chat, accusing him of being selfish for having food, water, and air conditioning while others suffer in the heat. The neighbors escalate their accusations, demanding Chen Zio come out and explain himself, openly blaming him for their worsening situation. Chen Zio casually drinks his beverage, remaining calm and relaxed despite the growing outrage and pressure outside. Without any urgency, he lowers his hand and looks at his phone, clearly unaffected by the accusations and threats aimed at him. A man stands before his massive stockpile of food and supplies inside a large refrigerator. He takes a photo of the well-stocked shelves with his phone. He shares the image to a group chat, boasting about his large stockpile and inviting others to sign up if they want some. His neighbors immediately respond, begging him to share food and deliver water to them. Chen Zio sends a firm message to the group chat, declaring that he isn't running a charity and will only trade his supplies for items of equal value. The neighbors erupt in anger, calling him a selfish brat and threatening him with karma, claiming he will suffer if they are left to starve. Unfazed by the insults and desperate threats, Chen Zio leans back and relaxes, completely indifferent to the chaos he caused in the chat. As he rests, a sudden chime rings out, and a mysterious notification appears, immediately catching his attention. As a holographic screen appears before him, Chen Zio is intrigued to discover a new ability called spatial cut. Curious about his newfound power, he decides to test it out on a simple apple sitting nearby. With a swift, sharp motion of his hand, he unleashes a blade of spatial energy that effortlessly slices the fruit in half. Seeing the lethal efficiency of the skill, Chen Zio smirks, noting that things are finally starting to get interesting. A bright orange vehicle drives through the quiet city streets late at night. A woman wearing red high heels steps out of the car onto the pavement. She stands confidently in an elegant black dress, accompanied by a bodyguard. Other guards wait as a mysterious man sits in the back of the vehicle, exhaling a cloud of smoke. A scarred man smokes a cigar with a serious expression while standing outside a residential complex. An older man in his group asks if this is the location where Chen Zhao lives. The scarred man confirms that their target resides in the innermost building. He then makes a bold move, placing his hand on the woman standing beside him as they prepare to move in. Brother Liu questions the woman about her past with Chen Zhao, asking if she will feel any regret as they prepare to raid his home. She quickly reassures him, claiming her heart belongs only to him and that she has no lingering feelings for her ex. To prove her loyalty, she insults Chen Zhao as a useless piece of trash, making it clear she views him with nothing but contempt. With their cold-blooded plans set in motion, the pair maliciously declares that tonight will be the final date of Chen Zhao's life. Two homeowners from the complex approach Brother Liu's group, eagerly offering their assistance to hunt down Chen Zhao. They explain that they know the area perfectly and are willing to block all escape routes to ensure he doesn't get away. Brother Liu accepts their offer, promising to share Chen Zhao's supplies with them if they help successfully capture him. Overjoyed by the potential reward, the neighbors lead the way, offering to take the group through a shortcut to reach their target faster. Chaos erupts in the residential complex as Brother Liu's thugs begin forcefully clearing out the residents and seizing their meager belongings. Accompanied by his elite guards and the woman, Brother Liu marches through the area, guided by the neighbors who foolishly believe they are on the same side. One of the neighbors is horrified to find his own home being raided, but a thug coldly informs him that the entire building now belongs to Brother Liu. The remaining residents scream in desperate protest, pleading that they did nothing to provoke such a violent and heartless takeover of their homes. The neighbors realize their mistake too late, regretting their greed and their foolish decision to trust such ruthless beasts. Brother Liu and his armed gang stand tall, prepared to use force to seize total control of the complex. A massive mob of thugs gathers in front of the building, heavily outnumbering any potential resistance as they prepare to move in. Suddenly, Chen Zhao appears and confronts the crowd, catching them off guard by hurling a sofa directly at them using his power. Chen Zhao calmly finishes his meal even as he is confronted by a large, hostile group. He nonchalantly asks if everyone has gathered there just to find him. Brother Liu warns him that death is near and demands he surrender his supplies to avoid a brutal end. Completely unfazed by the threat of imminent death, Chen Zhao simply wipes his mouth with a napkin. Chen Zhao scolds the group for their lack of manners, asking if their parents ever taught them not to disturb someone while they are eating. Infuriated by his calm attitude, Brother Liu loses his patience and orders his men to charge and cripple him. The gang members immediately launch a coordinated assault, rushing toward him with various weapons drawn. Despite being surrounded by a mob of armed thugs, Chen Zhao remains perfectly composed as the first wave of attacks reaches him. Chen Zhao effortlessly dodges an incoming punch, grabbing the attacker by the head before he can even recover. He slams the man's face into the concrete with devastating force, shattering the ground and leaving him incapacitated. As another thug attempts a surprise attack with a spiked flail, Chen Zhao remains perfectly composed and prepared. While still holding down his first opponent, he delivers a powerful kick that sends the second attacker flying across the pavement. A thug charges at Chen Zhao, swinging a heavy axe directly at his head with lethal intent. Chen Zhao remains unfazed, mockingly asking if they are forcing him to use spatial segmentation as he prepares to counter. He throws a yellow canister toward Brother Liu and his remaining group, catching them completely off guard. The canister hits the ground and immediately erupts into a massive, blinding cloud of smoke, masking the area in chaos. Coughing from the smoke, Brother Liu realizes it's tear gas and, suspecting an accomplice, orders his group to retreat immediately. After successfully driving off the attackers, Chen Zio stands firm as the remaining gang members flee into the night. A mysterious silhouette emerges from the haze, acknowledging the chaos Chen Zio caused while praising his impressive combat skills. Turning to face the unexpected visitor with a stern expression, Chen Zio demands to know why they have appeared. The mysterious visitor is revealed to be a man in a floral shirt, casually tossing a canister in his hand. He asks Chen Zio if he is still in the market for guns, suggesting they have a history of trading. An associate approaches the protagonist, visibly impressed by the resources on hand. He remarks that being able to drink ice water during such a difficult time is a sign of a truly comfortable and high-quality life. The protagonist remains cautious and questions the man's presence. He demands to know why the associate has crossed over into this area, noting that this side is outside of his usual territory. The man explains his motives, revealing that Liu Haifeng's men have been encroaching on his business lately. He admits that he has been surveilling them for several days to keep track of their movements. He explains that he followed Liu Haifeng's men to this location, not realizing they were heading for the protagonist. He concludes by questioning how the protagonist has managed to keep a large stockpile of scarce supplies, hinting that he must have access to special, secret channels. The protagonist remains highly suspicious of the man's line of questioning. Giving him a sharp, intense look, he demands to know exactly what the man is trying to get at with his comments about the supplies. The associate immediately tries to ease the tension, telling the protagonist not to take his curiosity the wrong way. He clarifies that he isn't interested in prying into the protagonist's private affairs or his secret supply channels. He finally reveals his true motive. Liu Haifeng has recently managed to stockpile a massive amount of purified water. He proposes that the two of them cooperate and form a partnership specifically to seize that water for themselves. Laying out the plan, the man explains that he is intimately familiar with the layout of Liu Haifeng's underground business. He suggests that the protagonist handles the retrieval. They store the water at this location first, and then he will use his connections to find a way to sell it. As the temperature continues to rise, the protagonist acknowledges that water has become an incredibly valuable and hard currency. He decides that cooperation with the associate is acceptable under the right circumstances. The protagonist agrees to the partnership, but immediately lays out a harsh set of terms. He proposes a 9-to-1 profit split, stating firmly that he will take 90% of the earnings while the associate only receives 10%. Shocked by the extreme demand, the man erupts in frustration, accusing the protagonist of basically trying to rob him. He is staggered by the unfairness of the offer, questioning how such a lopsided deal could even be considered. The protagonist remains completely unmoved by the man's outburst. Coldly, he gives a final ultimatum, stating that if the man is unwilling to accept those terms, then they have nothing left to discuss, effectively ending the negotiation. Desperate for a better deal, the associate begs for an 8-to-2 split instead of the previous offer. He pleads with the protagonist to leave him at least some profit, claiming he needs enough to survive and put food on the table. Internally, the man realizes he has very little leverage. He observes the protagonist's unwavering confidence and concludes that he must be holding a powerful trump card. Despite the harsh terms, he admits to himself that he cannot find anyone more suitable for this partnership. The protagonist calmly considers the proposal and decides that an 8-to-2 split is acceptable. However, he immediately attaches a new condition. For any future goods acquired, he must have the first pick, leaving only the remaining items for the associate to sell. Faced with no other viable options and realizing the protagonist holds all the power, the associate finally surrenders. He crosses his arms in resignation and officially concedes, telling the protagonist that he has won the negotiation. Once the deal is settled, the protagonist immediately focuses on the next phase of the plan. He states that their first objective is to gather intelligence on the stronghold's structural layout and the exact distribution of personnel stationed throughout the area. While surveying the target from a vantage point, the associate points out Liu Heifeng's stronghold and notes that the trading area is located at the front. He explains that people who are desperate for water come here to buy it with money or trade their belongings. Observing the movement within the complex, they witness the high level of security protecting the site. Armed guards are seen patrolling the perimeter and the main pathways, confirming that Liu Heifeng's men are well equipped and maintaining a constant watch over the territory. The associate continues his briefing by revealing a darker side of the operation. He explains that several women have been captured and are being held within the complex specifically to provide special services for the upper management of the organization. The associate highlights a woman in a red dress as an example of those held captive within the industrial complex. She appears distressed and on high alert while being monitored by Liu Heifeng's men, illustrating the dangerous environment the protagonist is about to enter. Turning his attention back to their primary objective, the associate explains that the water storage area is situated toward the rear of the facility. He admits, however, that he has not yet managed to pinpoint the exact building or container where the water is being kept. The protagonist begins to formulate a tactical approach, stating that he will sneak into the stronghold alone to scout the area. He instructs the associate to wait for a specific signal and then cause a massive distraction on the perimeter to lure the main guard force away. The associate reacts with pure shock at the idea of a solo mission, questioning how the protagonist plans to handle everything by himself. He specifically asks how one person could possibly manage to transport a significant amount of water without any help. The protagonist leaps over a high wall of shipping containers to infiltrate the stronghold, confident in his ability to carry out the mission. He dismisses his associate's earlier concerns, simply stating that he has his own secret methods for handling the logistics. Once successfully inside the perimeter, he begins navigating the industrial grounds of the facility. He moves through the shadows of the warehouse area, staying focused on his primary objective of locating the hidden water supply. His progress is suddenly halted when an armed guard spots him in the open. The guard demands that he stop immediately, noting that he looks unfamiliar, and aggressively asks to see his identification to prove he belongs on the site. Maintaining his composure, the protagonist quickly produces an ID card to sell his cover story. He calmly informs the guard that Boss Liu personally sent him to perform an official count of the current water stock, attempting to bluff his way deeper into the facility. The guard is immediately skeptical of the protagonist's excuse, mocking the idea that he was sent to count the water stock. He laughs at the flimsy cover story, asking the protagonist if he really thinks such a simple trick would work on him. Reaching out to place a hand on the guard, the protagonist reflects on his unique abilities in silence. He notes that while he previously only used his spatial cut technique for mundane tasks like cutting apples, today he intends to use it for something far more serious. With a swift and decisive motion, the protagonist unleashes the power of his technique directly against his opponent. The guard is caught completely off guard by the sudden, glowing strike, unable to react as the spatial cut connects with lethal precision. Overwhelmed by the force of the attack, the guard collapses with a cry of intense pain. The confrontation ends abruptly as he falls to the ground, neutralized before he can raise his weapon to defend himself. The first guard is decisively neutralized by the protagonist's lethal technique. As blood splatters across the night air, the guard collapses to the ground, leaving the protagonist free to continue his infiltration deeper into the facility. The commotion quickly attracts attention as a second guard discovers his fallen comrade. Horrified and enraged by the sight of his teammate lying motionless, he immediately spots the intruder and prepares to engage with lethal force. Without hesitation, the second guard draws his handgun and aims it squarely at the protagonist. Shouting in a desperate attempt to stop the intruder, he opens fire, unleashing a barrage of bullets toward the moving target. Facing the incoming gunfire, the protagonist reacts with incredible speed and precision. He unleashes a massive, glowing arc of energy that sweeps through the air, countering the guard's attack and overwhelming him in a single, powerful motion. The skirmish continues as the protagonist neutralizes another guard with his energy-based attack. Even as the guard manages to fire a shot, the lethal precision of the strike proves overwhelming, causing the facility's security to crumble under the sudden assault. The sound of combat alerts the entire stronghold, prompting a massive response from the personnel, shouting that an intruder has successfully sneaked in. A heavily armed unit carrying everything from rifles to an RPG rushes toward the area to intercept the threat. Understanding the danger of being surrounded by such a large force, the protagonist quickly moves back into the shadows. He presses himself firmly against a wall, staying out of the light as an armed guard runs right past his hiding spot without noticing him. Once the guard has passed, the protagonist remains incredibly composed despite the growing chaos. He takes a quiet moment to exhale, watching the guard scramble from his position in the darkness as he prepares to make his next move toward the water stock. The protagonist remains deep in thought, his eyes narrowed with intense focus as he continues his infiltration. He stays low, carefully observing the situation to determine the best time to move forward without being spotted by the roving security teams. Deep within the facility, a large crowd has gathered around the massive water storage tank, creating a significant amount of noise and activity. The gathering highlights just how critical this central resource is to everyone currently residing within the stronghold's walls. Security is tightened immediately as the search for the intruder intensifies across the industrial grounds. Heavily armed guards are seen silhouetted against the rusty corrugated warehouses, conducting a thorough and systematic sweep of the perimeter to root out the threat. In the midst of the sweep, a young woman suddenly appears from the shadows, looking visibly anxious and alert. She quickly brings a finger to her lips and signals for absolute silence, indicating that the guards are dangerously close to their current hiding spot. The protagonist encounters the young woman hiding near a corrugated warehouse. Crouching low to avoid detection, he immediately questions her presence, asking exactly why she is out in this dangerous area of the facility. The woman reveals that she was captured and brought to the stronghold against her will. Looking visibly shaken, she asks the protagonist if he has also been taken prisoner by the guards patrolling the industrial complex. Ignoring her question, the protagonist asks if she knows the specific location of the water stockpile. She confirms that she does, explaining that she was forced to clean the area and has already memorized the layout, offering to lead him directly there. Realizing she is a valuable asset to his mission, the protagonist accepts her help. The two remain alert in their hiding spot for a brief moment longer, preparing to move together toward the central water supply. The guards are suddenly alerted by a loud noise as a metal bucket falls and clatters across the pavement. The security team, armed with rifles and a rocket launcher, immediately converges on the area, shouting that someone is nearby and urging everyone to move quickly to investigate the source of the sound. Taking advantage of the momentary distraction, the young woman takes the lead to guide the protagonist through the complex. She instructs him to follow her closely, explaining that the specific path she is taking is a blind spot that is completely free of surveillance cameras. The two proceed with caution through the dark, narrow corridors of the industrial facility. They navigate through a grimy alleyway between the towering buildings, staying low and out of sight while the guards continue their frantic search in the opposite direction. As they push deeper into the stronghold, the duo passes through neglected areas where oversized pests scavenge among the debris. Despite the high alert security and the constant threat of discovery, they rely on the woman's knowledge of the layout to continue their stealthy advance toward the water supply. After reaching the target location with the help of the captive woman, the protagonist gives her a final instruction. He tells her to find a secure place to hide and wait patiently for him to emerge from the facility. The woman nods in agreement, staying out of sight as he prepares to breach the building alone. Approaching the heavy industrial entrance, the protagonist prepares to use his special abilities to bypass the barrier. He concentrates his power, placing his hand firmly against the metal surface. A vibrant blue energy begins to hum and swirl from his palm, forming a glowing geometric pattern as he focuses his strength. In a sudden burst of overwhelming force, the protagonist's energy detonates against the structure. The sheer power of the blast tears through the reinforced wall, sending massive shards of stone and debris flying in every direction. A brilliant blue light illuminates the dark warehouse grounds as the barrier is completely demolished. Inside the facility, the sudden explosion catches the security personnel completely off guard. A guard patrolling nearby reacts with total shock as the wall beside him spontaneously disintegrates into a cloud of thick dust and rubble. This violent breach provides the protagonist with a clear and direct path into the heart of the stronghold. Startled by the sudden explosion, a guard inside the warehouse screams out in a panic, demanding to know the intruder's identity and how they managed to breach the stronghold. He is visibly shaken, clutching his weapon as he faces the smoke and rubble of the demolished wall. From the shadows of the wreckage, the protagonist emerges with a cold, piercing gaze. His eyes glow a menacing red, signaling his lethal intent as he silently locks onto his target, completely unfazed by the guard's desperate shouting. With blinding speed, the protagonist lunges forward, unleashing a powerful arcing strike. A vibrant red energy blade cuts through the air in a single, fluid motion, catching the guard completely off balance before he can even think to pull the trigger. The strike connects with absolute precision, manifesting as a dark, jagged line that severs the guard's throat instantly. The man stands frozen in a state of terminal shock, silenced forever as the protagonist successfully clears the path to continue his mission deeper into the facility. Peering anxiously from behind a door, the girl grows increasingly worried about Chen Zhao's safety. She notes that he has been inside for a long time and hopes that nothing bad has happened to him. Suddenly, a violent disturbance erupts within the warehouse. Large rocks and heavy debris begin raining down from above, creating a chaotic scene as the structure appears to suffer a massive collapse or explosion. Standing amidst the rising smoke and falling dust, the girl is visibly stunned by the sudden destruction. She clutches a brick tightly in her hands, frozen in shock as the air fills with flying debris. As the thick clouds of dust begin to settle, she catches sight of a mysterious figure. A dark silhouette stands tall within the wreckage, emerging from the center of the chaos as she looks on in surprise. Reacting with a panicked scream, the girl raises her brick high above her head, prepared to strike out in self-defense against the mysterious figure emerging from the dust. She's frozen in place as she comes face to face with a young man wearing a black baseball cap. The two share a tense, silent moment as they stare at each other amidst the smoky wreckage. Maintaining a calm and serious demeanor, the man informs her that the situation has been taken care of and tells her it's time to leave. He begins to walk past her, leaving her standing there in a state of bewilderment. In a close-up shot, a pair of hands is seen firmly gripping a handgun. A sharp clicking sound resonates as the weapon is readied for action, adding a new layer of tension to the scene. Chen Zhao raises his handgun and fires a powerful shot directly into the air. A massive, brilliant muzzle flash erupts from the barrel, lighting up the industrial area with a blinding, star-like flare. High above the warehouse district, the projectile explodes into a shimmering burst of light. The signal flare hangs in the dark sky, casting a bright glow over the rooftops and ensuring the message is seen from a distance. Following the display, Chen Zhao walks forward with a confident, knowing smirk on his face. Behind him, the girl watches in silence, her hand pressed to her chin as she tries to process the sudden turn of events and his calm demeanor. From a vantage point on a nearby roof, An observer in a floral shirt watches the scene unfold through binoculars. He notes into a communicator that the situation is understood, acknowledging that Chen Xiao has proven himself to be quite impressive. The man in the floral shirt is seen pushing a rusted metal minecart filled with improvised incendiary devices. Numerous glass bottles with burning cloth wicks are packed into the cart, ready to be deployed as a calculated act of sabotage. From a high vantage point atop a conveyor belt, the man launches the flaming bottles downward. The air is filled with the sight of dozens of Molotov cocktails raining down upon the industrial facility, leaving streaks of fire across the night sky. The impact is immediate and devastating, as the entire factory building is engulfed in a massive inferno. Blazing orange flames and thick clouds of smoke billow out from the structure, completely consuming the upper floors in a sea of fire. Complete chaos breaks out at the facility as workers desperately scramble to respond to the disaster. Amidst the spreading flames, a figure leaps across the rooftops while urgent shouts to extinguish the fire echo throughout the burning complex. Amidst the raging inferno, a panicked worker points toward the spreading fire and shouts a desperate warning. He identifies the attack as an incendiary bomb and urges everyone in the vicinity to run for their lives. With the factory burning brightly in the background, Chen Xiao leads the way through a narrow alleyway. He directs the girl to follow him, explaining that this path leads directly to the outskirts of the South Gate and safety. In a tense close-up, Chen Xiao's expression remains stoic and focused. A chilling red glow emanates from his eyes, highlighting his intense determination as he navigates the dangerous situation with unnatural calm. Suddenly, a blonde woman appears and looks down at Chen Xiao with a look of pure desperation. She clings to him and pleads for her life, begging him to take her with him and not leave her behind in the devastation. Desperately clinging to Chen Xiao, the blonde woman begs him for his help. She tries to appeal to his emotions by reminding him of their past together, pleading for him to save her for the sake of the relationship they once shared as lovers. Hanging on to him in a state of panic, she attempts to bargain for her rescue. She promises that if he agrees to take her away from the burning facility, she will not hold it against him that he previously used her name to take out fraudulent loans. Chen Xiao responds with a cold, mocking smirk as he looks down at her. He scoffs at her offer of forgiveness, telling her that she clearly doesn't understand the reality of the situation and that her past grievances are the least of her worries now. Completely devastated by his heartless response, the woman breaks down in tears. Her expression is one of pure despair and shock as she realizes that her former lover feels no remorse and has no intention of showing her any mercy. The blonde woman reveals the dark reality of her time in the facility, describing a hellish routine of forced servitude. She claims that she was coerced every single day into servicing the older men there, painting a picture of a traumatic and trapped existence. She further details the brutal cycle of abuse she faced from her captors. She explains that any attempt at resistance resulted in immediate physical violence, and whenever she tried to run away, they would simply catch her and drag her back to face more torment. With a look of pure desperation, she begs Chen Xiao for his help and protection. Claiming she has absolutely nowhere else to turn, she pleads for him to let her live with him, promising that she is willing to do anything he asks in exchange for a safe haven. Chen Xiao remains cold and unmoved, confronting her with a list of her past betrayals. He reminds her of how she once mocked him for being poor, insulted him by calling him a simp, and even conspired with Liu Heifeng in a deadly plot to have him murdered. A chilling close-up reveals Chen Xiao's eye, now a deep, burning crimson. His gaze is filled with a cold, calculated fury as he finally confronts the woman who orchestrated his destruction in another life. Terrified and trembling, the woman's eyes widen as a wave of realization hits her. The shock of his words leaves her paralyzed, as the haunting sins of her past finally catch up to her in the most unexpected way. A gruesome vision from a past life surfaces, showing Chen Xiao being brutally dismembered by a group of attackers. He asks her if she ever truly believed he wouldn't return to make her pay for the day she helped slaughter him. The memory deepens, revealing the woman's heartless nature as she watched him suffer with a cruel smirk. While he was being tortured and held down, she stood by with her accomplices, enjoying the sight of his agonizing end without a shred of remorse. Chen Zhao delivers a sharp blow, knocking the blonde woman to the ground with a resounding slap. Unmoved by her pleas, he dismisses her desperate performance, telling her that her acting skills are still as pathetic as they were before. Turning his back on the fallen woman, Chen Zhao remains cold and indifferent to her suffering. He addresses his companion with a short, authoritative command, stating that it is finally time for them to leave this place behind. As the two walk away into the shadows of the alley, the blonde woman is left abandoned on the cold pavement. Behind them, the massive factory continues to burn, lighting up the night sky with the glow of the raging inferno they left in their wake. Left with nothing but her rage, the woman glares after them with a look of pure malice. She curses Chen Zhao for his extreme ruthlessness, vowing that if he refuses to show her mercy, she will ensure that no one else gets out of this alive or has an easy path forward. Inside the warehouse filled with billowing clouds of thick smoke and suffocating dust, a frantic voice rings out in pure desperation. A man screams out in a panic, his only concern being the safety of his water supply as he desperately checks if the precious resource is still okay. Suddenly, a group of armed men bursts through a doorway, their faces etched with shock as they survey the surrounding destruction. Led by a man in a patterned shirt, the group emerges with rifles at the ready, greeted by the intense heat of the spreading flames and a thunderous crashing sound echoing through the facility. From a top-down perspective, the three men are seen standing amidst the growing carnage, surrounded by rising smoke and encroaching fire. They find themselves in a ruined industrial section where shelves are toppled and the floor is charred, as the full extent of the sabotage begins to reveal itself. The man with long orange hair, identified as Boss Liu, is stopped dead in his tracks by a chilling discovery. Written boldly in red across a scorched wall is a final, bloodthirsty warning, a message declaring that while his water has been stolen this time, his very life will be the next thing taken. Boss Liu is shown in a state of absolute fury, his face contorted as he bellows a demand to know who is responsible for the destruction. His eyes are wide with rage as he searches for someone to blame for the devastating attack on his facility. Seizing the opportunity to save herself, the blonde woman feigns a position of weakness on the ground as Boss Liu approaches. She tearfully identifies Chen Zhao as the perpetrator, claiming that she courageously tried to stop him but was injured in the process. Continuing her calculated manipulation, she further stokes Boss Liu's anger by sharing insulting remarks she claims were made by their enemy. She tells him that Chen Zhao mockingly referred to him as nothing more than a piece of trash. She delivers a final stinging insult, asserting that Chen Zhao claimed Boss Liu was completely unworthy of possessing any of the valuable resources at the facility. Her lies are carefully crafted to incite a deadly and direct confrontation between the two men. Leaning into Boss Liu, the blonde woman continues her calculated manipulation to ensure Chen Zhao is eliminated. She whispers a final lie, claiming that his true intention isn't just to steal their supplies, but to hunt down and kill every single person in the gang. Driven into a blind frenzy by her words and the message on the wall, Boss Liu lets out an enraged roar. He rallies his remaining men with a violent command, ordering everyone to head toward the south gate immediately to slaughter Chen Zhao for his defiance. As the warehouse continues to burn, Chen Zhao's ally surveys the growing carnage from a safe distance. Standing near a stack of oil barrels, he remarks on the massive scale of the disaster they've created, noting that the entire facility is now in absolute chaos. From their vantage point on a nearby rooftop, Chen Zhao and his partner watch the facility go up in flames. Holding a lit torch and looking down at his panicked enemies, Chen Zhao coldly agrees, satisfied that his plan for revenge is finally unfolding exactly as intended. Boss Liu arrives at the scene with a massive group of his followers, their silhouettes framed by the massive fire consuming the warehouse. He stands at the forefront, his expression a mixture of calculation and intense anger as he finally confronts the source of the chaos. Casually holding a lit torch, Chen Zhao greets the arrival of the gang leader with a mocking smirk. He comments on how quickly Boss Liu managed to mobilize his forces, his eyes glowing with a red intensity that shows he has been expecting this direct confrontation all along. His patience completely exhausted, Boss Liu points a finger toward his enemy and bellows a final, violent command to his men. He orders his subordinates to charge forward and seize Chen Zhao, sparking a desperate rush as the armed gang members prepare to swarm their target. As the mob begins its assault, Chen Zhao hurls a flaming object into their path, creating a new barrier of fire between them. His partner in the floral shirt stands beside him with arms crossed, watching with a satisfied grin as they lead their pursuers further into a carefully prepared trap. The area erupts into an uncontrollable inferno as the sabotage reaches its peak. Swirling red and orange flames consume the surroundings, accompanied by a deafening roar as the intense heat spreads through the industrial complex. Boss Liu's gang members gather at the edge of the destruction, their silhouettes framed by the massive wall of fire. Armed with bats and metal pipes, the men stand ready for a fight, watching the blaze with a mixture of grim determination and readiness. Driven to a state of absolute madness by the loss of his facility, Boss Liu lets out a blood-curdling scream. He bellows a direct threat at Chen Zhao, swearing with every ounce of his rage that he will personally ensure the young man dies for what he has done. Maintaining his eerie composure, Chen Zhao looks on with a mocking smirk and glowing red eyes. He sarcastically thanks Boss Liu for the outburst, revealing that he is actually benefiting from the situation by collecting emotion points from the leader's intense hatred. Under the cover of night, a flurry of papers is seen flying out of a brightly lit window in an apartment building. The scene suggests a chaotic or celebratory aftermath to a major event that has just concluded. Inside the room, the mood is one of pure triumph. A man in a patterned shirt raises his glass for a toast, exclaiming to his friend that their recent move was absolutely incredible. He is clearly energized by their success. The group, consisting of 2 men and a woman, gathers around a marble table for a celebratory hot pot dinner. As they prepare to eat, they laugh at the thought of their rival, Old Dog Liu, who they assume is currently tearing his own house apart in a fit of rage. The celebration continues with a massive spread of food, featuring plates of sliced meat, fresh vegetables, and several bottles of beer. Having successfully pulled off their plan, the trio settles in to enjoy their hard-earned victory feast. While serving the meal, the woman expresses her profound gratitude to Chen Zhao. She admits that if he hadn't stepped in to help her, she would still be trapped in a miserable situation she can only describe as a hellhole. Her tone is heavy with relief. Chen Zhao listens calmly, wearing a black cap and a Nishouxia t-shirt. He tries to downplay his actions, telling her that they are old classmates and there is absolutely no need for her to be so formal or overly polite about the help he provided. Refusing to let it go, the woman looks down with a soft, sincere expression. She explains that it isn't just about being polite. His rescue meant more than that. She tells him that his selfless actions made her realize there are still people in this world who are truly worth trusting. The atmosphere lightens as their friend in the patterned shirt chimes in from across the table. He playfully teases Chen Zhao, praising him for his hero saves the beauty move. He notes that the entire rescue was handled with brilliant timing and style. The man in the floral shirt leans in eagerly, asking Chen Zhao to finally give him the lowdown on his recent feat. He is dying to know the secret behind the operation and how Chen Zhao managed to pull off such a massive task. He gestures wildly at the room, which is now revealed to be overflowing with large water jugs. He questions if Chen Zhao used some kind of magic, as he somehow managed to empty an entire reservoir into these containers all by himself. A wide shot reveals the true, staggering scale of the operation, showing the apartment packed wall to wall and floor to ceiling with thousands of water bottles. The sheer absurdity of the sight leaves the group in a moment of stunned, speechless silence. While his friend reacts with a face of pure shock and disbelief, Chen Zio remains perfectly calm, continuing to eat his meal. He cryptically states that he has his ways and advises his friend to shift his focus toward the logistics of safely selling such a massive quantity of water. As they continue their meal, Chen Zio turns to the woman with a curious expression. He mentions that after they graduated from junior high, she seemed to vanish completely, and he asks why there was never any news about her during all those years. The woman's demeanor shifts instantly, her face clouding with a deep, lingering sadness. She gazes down at her bowl and quietly reveals that shortly after their graduation, her family suffered through a series of tragic accidents that changed the course of her life. A tense close-up shows her face partially obscured by shadows, her eyes hidden behind her hair. The weight of those memories clearly still haunts her, leaving her momentarily lost in the pain of a past she has struggled to escape. A haunting flashback reveals the source of her trauma. She is seen standing alone in a dark, grime-streaked hallway, facing an open doorway. In the memory, she calls out tentatively for her mother and father, searching for them in the unsettling darkness. Continuing her tragic story, the woman reveals the most painful detail of her past. With a look of profound sorrow, she explains that her parents both went missing at the very same time, leaving her completely alone and vulnerable. The weight of her confession leaves Chen Zio and his friend in a stunned, somber silence. Both men look visibly shaken, their expressions hardening as they process the magnitude of the tragedy she has been carrying for all these years. The emotional moment is abruptly shattered as a violent fire suddenly erupts within the apartment. Roaring flames and thick smoke quickly fill the room, catching the trio completely off guard as they are forced to abandon their meal and scramble for safety. From outside the building, the true scale of the disaster is revealed as massive flames engulf the lower floors. The group is forced out onto a balcony, looking down in horror as the raging inferno below threatens to trap them in the burning structure. The celebration is abruptly cut short as the group rushes to the balcony, staring out at the horizon in pure disbelief. Their friend shouts in horror that the disaster is worse than they imagined, as the entire area outside has been transformed into a massive, raging inferno that lights up the night sky. Retreating back inside, they watch a wall of security monitors that captured the terrifying reality of the situation. The cameras display multiple angles of the building, showing various rooms and hallways being rapidly consumed by flames, confirming that the entire structure has become a sprawling death trap. One monitor focuses on a particularly heart-wrenching scene, a woman trapped behind a window, screaming into the camera for someone to help save the children. Her desperate plea highlights the cruelty of the arson, showing that many innocent lives are being caught in the crossfire of this attack. Infuriated by the sight on the screens, the man in the floral shirt slams his hand down in a fit of rage. He immediately identifies the culprit, shouting that this is all Liu Haifeng's doing and cursing the man for being heartless enough to drive everyone to their deaths just for the sake of his revenge. As they watch the tragedy unfold on the monitors, the woman asks Chen Zio if they should step in and do something to help. Internally, Chen Zio realizes this is exactly what Liu Haifeng wants. His rival is using the lives of innocents as a moral trap to force Chen Zio into the open. Chen Zio remains cold and unmoved, thinking to himself that he is no longer the rotten do-gooder he was in his past life. He recalls how his previous attempts to save everyone only led to his own death, and he refuses to be strangled by his own morality a second time. Outside, Liu Haifeng screams at the building, challenging Chen Zio to show himself. He mocks Chen Zio's defenses as a mere turtle shell and declares that if his rival won't come out, He is perfectly willing to burn the entire neighborhood to ash to flush him out. Liu's henchmen work quickly to fuel the disaster, pouring more liquid onto the flames. They praise their leader's ruthless wisdom, noting that as the fire grows, the suffocating smoke will be just as effective as the flames at killing everyone trapped inside the area. Liu Heifeng stands arrogantly amidst the raging inferno he created, looking out at the destruction with a sense of triumph. He scoffs at the idea of Chen Zhao attempting to oppose him, clearly believing that his overwhelming show of force has already ended the conflict. In a sinister close-up, Liu reveals a sadistic grin while casually holding a cigarette. He revels in the chaos he has unleashed, his expression twisted with malice as he prepares to witness the final outcome of his destructive plan. The fire continues to spread uncontrollably, turning the entire neighborhood into a hellscape of smoke and embers. Buildings on both sides of the street are swallowed by massive flames, leaving no clear escape for anyone caught within the scorched perimeter. Inside their darkened command room, the group watches the monitors with mounting desperation. The man in the floral shirt shouts to a stoic Chen Zhao that they cannot survive much longer, warning that the conducting heat will soon roast them alive or leave them without oxygen to breathe. Chen Zhao remains completely unfazed by the growing danger outside. A faint, knowing smirk plays on his lips as he listens to his friend's panicked warnings. It is clear that he has a hidden card to play that the others haven't even considered. Standing calmly in his advanced command center, Chen Zhao reflects on his own foresight. He notes that in a world facing a high-temperature apocalypse, it would have been foolish not to equip his Safehouse with a top-tier fire protection system. The raging inferno visible through the window doesn't rattle him in the slightest. With a steady hand, Chen Zhao reaches for a control panel and firmly presses a large red button. This simple action triggers the complex defensive measures he meticulously designed for exactly this kind of emergency, signaling the start of his counterattack. Outside, the building's automated defense system roars to life. A heavy-duty water cannon mounted on the exterior wall activates, unleashing a high-pressure torrent of water. The massive stream begins to douse the surrounding flames, instantly turning the tide against Liu Haifeng's arson attack. A series of specialized canisters are launched from the building's upper floors directly into the heart of the fire. These canisters are part of a sophisticated, automated defense system that Chen Zhao triggered to neutralize the arson attack. Upon impact, the canisters burst open and release a dense, white substance that rapidly expands across the ground. This material acts as a massive physical barrier, effectively smothering the flames and creating a wide perimeter that prevents the fire from reaching the structure. Watching the deployment from the monitors, the man in the patterned shirt is nearly speechless with shock. He identifies the substance as military-grade nanoaerogel and expresses utter disbelief that Chen Zhao was able to procure such high-end, specialized technology. The woman looks on in silent awe, her expression a mix of surprise and growing admiration for her former classmate. While his friends reel from the revelation of his resources, Chen Zhao remains perfectly calm, his meticulous planning once again keeping them all safe from harm. Liu Heifeng stands before the building, watching as the flames he unleashed are met with thick clouds of suppression material. He remains intensely focused on the structure, observing the initial resistance to his attack with a cold gaze. With a look of pure contempt, Liu Heifeng dismisses the defensive measures as nothing more than a pathetic death struggle. He is convinced that these efforts are merely delaying the inevitable and that his victory is still certain. The assault continues relentlessly as his men refuse to back down. One henchman is seen aggressively hurling another bottle of fuel into the fray, determined to reignite the areas where the fire suppression system has started to take effect. The area remains a chaotic battlefield of orange flames and white suppression gas. As more canisters fall and impact the ground with heavy crashes, Liu Heifeng stands in the center of the destruction, waiting to see whose resolve will break first. Liu Heifeng refuses to admit defeat, furiously commanding his men to keep the assault going. He shouts that he doesn't believe Chen Zio's high-tech defensive junk has an infinite supply, and he is determined to outlast the suppression system through sheer persistence. The situation on the ground quickly deteriorates as his henchmen report a critical failure. One panicked subordinate shouts that their fuel is almost completely depleted and admits that Chen Zio's wicked white mist is far too effective, leaving Boss Liu visibly enraged as his plan falls apart. From the safety of his apartment, Chen Zio picks up a megaphone to deliver a final, stinging insult. He calmly asks Boss Liu if he has played enough with fire and sarcastically invites him inside for a glass of ice water to help him cool down after his humiliating defeat. A high-angle view reveals the attackers standing defeated in the middle of the street, surrounded by empty fuel barrels and the dying embers of their failed arson attempt. Despite their numbers, they are left powerless against Chen Zio's superior preparation and tactical foresight. Liu Haifeng has a change of heart, deciding that simply killing Chen Zio would be letting him off far too easily. He gazes at the building, realizing its fireproof and self-sufficient nature makes it the ultimate shelter, and he vows that the house must belong to him. Acknowledging that his fire attacks and brute force have proven completely ineffective, Liu Haifeng's expression twists into a sinister, wide-eyed grin. He declares that he is finished playing games and is ready to tear off the last shred of civility to get what he wants. The villain reveals his leverage: two innocent women, their hands bound tightly with rope. They look on with expressions of pure terror and desperation, realizing they have been captured as hostages to be used against Chen Zio. Chen Zio stands his ground, still clutching the megaphone as he stares down at the scene below. His face is cast in deep shadow, his eyes glowing with a cold, sharp intensity that shows he is fully prepared to face whatever ruthless tactics Liu Haifeng attempts next. Liu Haifeng brandishes a flaming axe, shouting for Chen Zio to come out and face him. He demands that Chen Zio look at the hostages, claiming they are all suffering solely because of his actions. The terrified captives cry out in despair, cursing Chen Zio for offending Boss Liu. They beg him to show himself, blaming him for dragging them into this dangerous conflict. Liu Haifeng prepares to execute the elderly hostage to draw Chen Zio out. Despite the threat, the old man remains defiant, warning Liu Haifeng that such cruelty will only lead to his own miserable death. Inside, Chen Zio's allies prepare to charge out and fight, but Chen Zio remains cold. He realizes that Liu Haifeng is using lives as blackmail and concludes that, in this harsh world, being soft-hearted is the same as suicide. Chen Zio watches the monitor and recognizes the hostage as Old Man Wang. Seeing the man who once helped him in the hands of his enemy causes a visible shift in his demeanor. Chen Zio recalls a past moment of desperation when Old Man Wang stood by him amidst flames and ruin. He remembers the old man's words, urging him to stay alive because as long as there is life, there is hope. The memory of Old Man Wang's kindness ignites a cold fury within Chen Zio. His eyes glow with a lethal resolve as he decides that he can no longer remain a passive observer to this cruelty. Taking charge, Chen Zio instructs Mu Kang to stay behind and protect Yaoyu. Determined to end the conflict once and for all, he heads out alone to settle his accounts with Boss Liu. Chen Zio finally steps out into the open, facing the chaos head-on. As he walks through the remnants of the neighborhood, he remains calm, his presence alone shifting the tension of the confrontation. He confronts Liu Haifeng directly, making it clear that their personal grudge is between the two of them alone. He demands that Liu Haifeng stop targeting innocent people, as they have nothing to do with their conflict. Liu Haifeng mocks Chen Zio for finally crawling out of his turtle shell. He offers a brutal ultimatum: if Chen Zio pays back the money, hands over his water supply, and surrenders his life, he might consider releasing the hostages. In response to being accused of playing hero, Chen Zio lets out a chilling smirk. His dark expression suggests that he isn't there to sacrifice himself, but to bring a violent end to the leverage Liu Haifeng thinks he holds. Facing boss Liu's demands, Chen Xiao maintains a cold, unwavering stare. He flatly rejects the initial ultimatum, stating simply and firmly that he is not interested in the terms offered. Shifting his approach, Chen Xiao adopts a mockingly casual tone to unsettle his opponent. He remarks that constant fighting and killing is tedious and ultimately bad for one's karma, suggesting a different way to settle the score. Chen Xiao proposes a high-stakes gamble to resolve the conflict. He offers everything he owns if he loses, but in return, he demands that Boss Liu release Old Man Wang and vacate the area immediately if he wins. The prospect of seizing all of Chen Xiao's resources delights Boss Liu, who bursts into a manic laugh. Accepting the challenge, he prepares to strike, eager to claim the prize he believes is already his. Boss Liu shakes his dice cup aggressively, proposing a single round bet of high or low. He declares that this one roll will be the final decider, with both of their lives and everything they own hanging in the balance. Chen Xiao takes his position, matching Boss Liu's intensity as he holds his own dice cup with a steady hand. He remains eerily calm, showing no signs of hesitation despite the lethal stakes of the gamble. With a look of cold resolve, Chen Xiao accepts the terms of the challenge. He stares directly at his opponent and places his bet on the outcome being high, ready to let the dice determine the future. The two stand face to face in a legendary gambling god showdown. Surrounded by a heavy atmosphere of tension, they prepare for the final reveal that will either grant Chen Xiao his victory or cost him his life. Boss Liu shakes the dice cup with a smug, overconfident grin. Dressed in his gambling god persona, he rattles the dice aggressively, convinced that luck is on his side and that he is about to seize all of Chen Xiao's hard-earned resources. Not to be outdone, Chen Xiao leans fully into the theatrics of the high-stakes showdown. Wearing a tuxedo and a dramatic cape, he mirrors the gambling god aesthetic with a stoic and professional aura, shaking his cup with a precision that starts to unnerve his opponent. Despite the flamboyant disguise, Chen Xiao's gaze remains razor-sharp behind his sunglasses. He is no longer just a survivor. He is a man on a mission, his eyes filled with a cold, calculated resolve to win back Old Man Wang's freedom at any cost. As the moment of truth arrives, the atmosphere becomes suffocatingly tense. Liu Haifeng shouts with a mix of manic laughter and anticipation, ready to slam his cup down and reveal the roll that he believes will seal Chen Xiao's fate and end the challenge in his favor. Boss Liu unleashes a roar of anticipation as he shakes his dice cup with violent intensity. He puts his entire focus into the rattle, clearly confident that this single roll will grant him everything Chen Xiao possesses. Chen Xiao matches his opponent's aggressive energy, letting out a shout of his own as he vigorously shakes his cup. His expression is one of pure determination, showing that he is fully committed to this life or death gamble. In a simultaneous burst of motion, both men slam their dice cups onto the table with a thunderous impact. The air is thick with tension as the shaking stops, and they prepare to reveal the outcome that will decide the fate of everyone involved. However, a subtle close-up reveals that the game is far from fair. A finger reaches out to press a hidden button on the side of the dice cup, indicating that a mechanical trick is being used to manipulate the final result and rig the gamble. As the dice settle, a hidden magnetic mechanism inside the cup triggers, flipping the dice to force a specific result. The gamble is rigged from the start, ensuring that the house always wins through calculated deception. Boss Liu reveals his hand 3 sixes and erupts into a triumphal laugh. He declares it a supreme hand and mocks Chen Xiao, telling him he has officially lost everything in this single, high-stakes roll. Despite the apparent defeat, Chen Xiao remains eerily calm. He tells Boss Liu not to rush to conclusions, pointedly stating that they don't actually know who the winner is yet, as he prepares to reveal his own results. In a sudden, blinding flash, Chen Zio's dice are sliced through mid-air as he reveals them. The shocking move suggests that he has his own way of countering Boss Liu's cheating, turning the rigged game completely on its head. As the tension reaches its breaking point, Chen Zio slowly lifts his dice cup to reveal a result that defies logic. Instead of the 3 standard dice everyone expected, the floor is covered in small, jagged fragments. The sudden turn of events leaves Boss Liu and his crew in a state of absolute disbelief. Their arrogant victory shouts are replaced by gasps of horror as they realize their supreme hand of 3 sixes might not be enough. Upon closer inspection, the true genius of Chen Zio's move is revealed. His dice weren't merely broken. They were meticulously sliced in half with lethal precision. By exposing the internal faces of the dice, he has effectively doubled his point count. The hostages and onlookers watch the scene unfold with wide-eyed amazement, struggling to comprehend the incredible feat they just witnessed. They whisper in shock, wondering how the dice were split so perfectly and how a supreme hand could be so easily dismantled. Chen Zio reveals that his total points equal 21, officially outscoring Boss Liu's supreme hand. The revelation leaves Boss Liu trembling in shock as he realizes his guaranteed victory has been completely overturned. With the win secured, Chen Zio stares down his opponent with cold resolve. He firmly declares that the gamble is over and demands that Boss Liu honor their agreement by releasing the hostage immediately. Boss Liu is consumed by a seething rage, his face contorting as he struggles to process his public humiliation. Unable to accept the defeat, he glares at Chen Zio with murderous intent, his composure completely shattered. Losing all control, Boss Liu explodes in a fit of hypocritical fury. He screams at Chen Zio, accusing him of daring to cheat, refusing to acknowledge the result of the game he attempted to rig himself. Completely losing his grip on reality after the loss, Boss Liu snaps and lunges at Chen Zio with a knife. He screams for the little punk to go to hell, choosing to end the confrontation with a desperate, bloodthirsty assault instead of honoring their agreement. The bound hostages watch the scene in absolute terror, their faces contorted with fear as the situation turns lethal. They realize that Boss Liu has abandoned all restraint, leaving them caught in the crossfire of a violent struggle for survival. Rather than showing fear, Chen Zio meets the lethal charge with a chilling smirk. He remains incredibly composed, mentally noting that this sudden attack provides the perfect real-world opportunity to finally test out his newly acquired skill. Boss Liu brings the blade down with murderous intent, aiming a killing blow at Chen Zio. As the weapon closes the distance, Chen Zio prepares his counter move, ready to turn the tables on his aggressor in one decisive moment. As Boss Liu lunges, a large object suddenly hurtles down from above, caught in his peripheral vision. The unexpected projectile forces him to pause his attack, his expression shifting from murderous intent to sheer confusion. Using his hidden ability, Chen Zio hurls a massive gas canister directly at Boss Liu. The impact is sudden and violent, slamming into the ground between them and creating a massive shockwave that halts the knife-wielding boss in his tracks. The canister explodes in a thick cloud of gas and debris, obscuring the area and sending Boss Liu's men into a panic. They shout out for their leader, unable to see through the smoke to determine if he survived the devastating blast. Boss Liu emerges from the smoke, coughing and disoriented but largely unharmed. Ignoring his men's concerns, he furiously orders them to find Chen Zio immediately, his obsession with capturing the kid now reaching a boiling point. As the smoke from the explosion begins to settle, Chen Zio stands calmly, completely unfazed by the recent blast. Boss Liu catches sight of him through the lingering haze, his initial shock quickly turning back into aggressive intent. Pointing a trembling finger into the clearing smoke, Boss Liu alerts his subordinates that Chen Zio is right in front of them. He screams at his men to focus their attention ahead, desperate to finish the job once and for all. Following their leader's command, The henchmen open fire, unloading a hail of bullets into the dust cloud. Boss Liu shouts for them to beat him to death, showing no mercy as they saturate the area with automatic gunfire. The relentless assault is suddenly cut short by a mysterious flash of purple energy slicing through the air. Boss Liu recoils in absolute confusion and terror, screaming to know what is happening as the tide of the battle shifts in an instant. Chen Zio's new ability manifests as a lethal arc of purple energy that slices through his attackers with terrifying ease. One of the henchmen is caught in the path of the strike, his screams echoing as the mysterious power effortlessly cleaves through everything in its way. Despite the concentrated hail of bullets and the recent explosion, Chen Zio emerges from the clearing smoke without a single scratch on him. His calm, unyielding presence serves as a silent taunt, proving that conventional weapons are completely useless against his superior power. Driven to absolute desperation, Boss Liu's men prepare a heavy-duty rocket launcher for a final, devastating strike. They boast that no matter how tough or fast Chen Zio may be, a direct hit from such a high-caliber weapon is impossible to dodge. With a roar of defiance, they fire the massive weapon directly at Chen Zio, igniting a violent explosion. Boss Liu bets everything on this overwhelming show of force, hoping that pure destructive power can finally kill the man who has defied every other attempt on his life. As the rocket closes in, Chen Zio activates his space barrier. The blue energy field manifests instantly, creating a near-impenetrable wall between himself and the incoming explosive. Chen Zio remains completely undisturbed within the safety of the barrier. The intense blue light of the spatial defense surrounds him, emphasizing the massive gap in power between his abilities and conventional weaponry. Upon impact, the rocket fails to explode as intended. Instead, the overwhelming force of the barrier causes the massive projectile to shatter and crack into pieces, rendering the heavy-duty weapon completely ineffective. Boss Liu is left in a state of absolute disbelief, his face dripping with cold sweat. He screams in terror, unable to comprehend how his most powerful weapon was neutralized so effortlessly by a power he cannot understand. A massive missile hurtles toward Chen Zio as Boss Liu resorts to total destruction. Despite the imminent threat falling from the sky, Chen Zio remains perfectly still, facing the overwhelming weapon with an unsettling lack of fear. Chen Zio mockingly asks Boss Liu if he truly finds it this difficult to accept defeat in front of so many witnesses. He stares directly at his opponent, completely unfazed by the destructive force closing in on him. With a lethal glint in his eyes, Chen Zio questions if Boss Liu actually intends to go back on his word. His calm demeanor shifts into a cold, predatory focus, signaling that the time for games has finally ended. Before the missile can strike, Chen Zio unleashes his power, slicing the massive projectile into harmless fragments mid-air. With effortless precision, he neutralizes the threat, leaving Boss Liu's final desperate attempt in ruins. Chen Zio walks forward with an aura of absolute dominance, his presence heavy as a discarded blade lies abandoned in the street. The sheer coldness in his movement suggests that the initial skirmish is already over, leaving only the final judgment to be delivered. The power dynamic has shifted completely, leaving Boss Liu reeling from the sudden turn of events. As Chen Zio closes the distance, the criminal leader is struck by a wave of realization that he is no longer the one in control of the situation. Walking down the steps with indifference, Chen Zio mocks Boss Liu, telling him that since he doesn't even possess a decent blade, he is no longer qualified to negotiate. Behind him, a sweating and panicked Boss Liu realizes that something is fundamentally wrong with the man he once considered a simple target. Holding his own blade with lethal intent, Chen Zio declares that Boss Liu has repeatedly crossed his bottom line by coming after him again and again. With cold eyes and a steady hand, he announces that the time has finally come for them to settle their accounts once and for all. Boss Liu realizes that continuing the fight is a losing deal. He notes that Chen Zio's strange abilities and secure Safehouse make him a walking goldmine, far too valuable to simply destroy in a direct confrontation. Frustrated and overwhelmed by the situation, he rubs his face while reconsidering his strategy. He determines that finding a way to exploit Chen Zio's resources is a much better path than a suicidal battle. Shifting his persona, he puts on a friendly front and addresses Chen Zio as brother. He dismisses their previous conflict as a mere misunderstanding and desperately proposes that they strike a deal instead of fighting. In a brief break from the story, an announcement reveals that a new series is now online. Readers are informed that they can expect 2 new chapters to be released every week. The creator shares an update, reassuring the audience that the story remains fair and honest for readers young and old alike. Accompanied by an image of the protagonist with glowing eyes, the message sets a serious and intense tone for the journey ahead. A major announcement reveals a new, faster release schedule featuring double updates every Friday and Saturday. This increase in content aims to keep the momentum going, but the creator notes that the growth of the series relies heavily on community engagement. Desperate for mercy, the man warns Chen Zio that killing him is pointless, but he can help him survive. He offers to split a precious stash of antibiotics like penicillin and cephalosporin if he is spared. He reminds Chen Zio that a simple infection can be fatal and medicine is now the ultimate prize. Chen Zio coldly agrees, acknowledging that in their world, antibiotics are indeed the most valuable currency. Chen Zio reveals to Boss Liu that his supplies are far greater than he can imagine. Boss Liu counters, stating that food and drink are useless without medicine, as a single illness can be fatal in their world. He offers a deal, a hidden batch of antibiotics in an abandoned factory, for which only he knows the password. Chen Zio agrees to the cooperation, declaring that tonight's conflict ends here. Chen Zio declares the conflict over, relieved that their misunderstanding has finally been cleared up. He sends Boss Liu on his way, suggesting they discuss the specifics of their arrangement another day. Rejoining his crew, a contemplative Boss Liu is immediately greeted by his subordinates. With a final command to his men, Boss Liu leads his group away from the scene. As Boss Liu and his men retreat into the night, Chen Zio watches them go with a knowing look. He scoffs at the idea of a password, confident that no locked door can truly keep him out. Turning back to the residence, he reassures Grandpa Wang and the others that the threat has finally passed. While the group finds relief, a woman watches from the shadows, her expression filled with lingering tension. Amidst the lingering tension, Grandpa Wang expresses his profound gratitude to Chen Zio for saving his life. Admitting he is too old to fight, he offers to repay the debt by helping Chen Zio with chores and planting. Chen Zio acknowledges the offer but urges the residents to return home, lock their doors, and get some rest. As the community retreats, the city remains shrouded under the ominous glow of a blood-red moon. One of Boss Liu's men admits to being terrified of Chen Zio during their tense encounter. Boss Liu scoffs, revealing he never intended to cooperate or share any medicine with such a rash youngster. He explains it was merely a stalling tactic to seize Chen Zio's supplies before killing him, mocking the boy for being too green. His men praise his cunning strategy, betting that Chen Zio won't survive more than 3 days for daring to oppose them. Boss Liu observes that something is clearly wrong with Chen Zio, noting that even artillery shells couldn't get near him. He commands Pineapple Head to spend the next few days investigating Chen Zio to uncover his secrets. Before he can finish, a sudden and lethal strike slashes Boss Liu across the chest. His men erupt in panic, screaming about a ghost and shouting for everyone to run for their lives. Following the swift and lethal strike, Boss Liu is left lying dead in the middle of a silent street. Watching from a rooftop under a blood-red sky, Chen Zio coldly bids Boss Liu a final goodbye forever. Meanwhile, an emergency broadcast warns that the global high-temperature phenomenon has spiraled completely out of control. The notification confirms that multiple climate tipping points have been breached, leaving the ecosystem on the verge of total collapse. An emergency broadcast gives residents two choices: flee to northern government shelters or stay put and wait for rescue. Chen Zhao dismisses both options, predicting that the north will become a new purgatory and that waiting for rescue is a hopeless pipe dream. He warns that the true nightmare is just beginning as a terrifying new threat prepares to emerge. Before long, heat-resistant mutant beasts will rise to devour every remaining trace of human civilization. As monstrous beasts emerge, the world descends into a violent and fiery apocalypse. In this lawless landscape, survivors are driven to fight and kill each other for any hope of survival. Chen Zhao realizes that merely guarding his current safe house is no longer enough to endure. He vows to transform his home into the ultimate fortress for survival against the encroaching nightmare. Enraged by their own starvation and the loss of their homes to the flames, a desperate mob gathers to target their frustrations toward Chen Zhao. They voice their deep resentment, questioning why he is allowed to occupy a sturdy fortress alone, equipped with food, drink, and air conditioning while they suffer in the heat. One man violently pounds on the door, shouting that Chen Zhao's refusal to help earlier is the reason for their current misery and demanding he step out to give them an explanation. The group ultimately declares their decision. For the sake of collective survival, Chen Zhao must share his safe house and allow everyone to take turns living within its walls. While the world outside collapses, Chen Zhao enjoys the comforts of his fortress, casually preparing a high-quality steak dinner. He captures a photo of his gourmet meal, intending to flaunt his wealth of resources to the desperate neighbors. The image sparks a wave of outrage among the starving residents, who are furious that he has food and AC while they lack basic water. Chen Zhao watches their reactions with cold amusement, dismissing their powerless anger as the cheapest emotion in the apocalypse. Consumed by a murderous rage after seeing Chen Zhao's taunting photos, one of the neighbors erupts in a violent outburst, unable to endure the blatant display of luxury. He smashes his phone into the ground with a scream, swearing that since Chen Zhao refused their toast of cooperation, he will now be forced to drink a bitter forfeit of death. Completely unfazed by the growing threats outside his fortress, Chen Zhao decides it's time to investigate the lead about the abandoned factory in the West District to secure more resources. However, the moment he pushes open his heavy doors to leave, a punishing and relentless heatwave slams into him, serving as a brutal reminder of just how lethal the outside world has become. Just as Chen Zhao opens his doors to face the heat, he is met with a sudden and violent ambush. A group of thugs corners Chen Zhao, demanding that he give up his house immediately. The leader brandishes a weapon, threatening to cripple Chen Zhao if he doesn't comply. Despite being outnumbered and threatened, Chen Zhao remains cold and composed. As they charge, Chen Zhao moves with blinding speed to launch a swift counterattack. As the weapon swings down, Chen Zhao catches it mid-air with incredible precision. He swiftly twists the attacker's arm, instantly neutralizing the threat. With a powerful strike, Chen Zhao sends the thug reeling back in shock. He stands his ground, easily overpowering the aggressor as the tables turn. Another thug joins the assault, swinging a cleaver at the calm protagonist. Chen Zhao's eyes flare with a sinister red light as his focus intensifies. He strikes with blinding speed, neutralizing every attacker in a single, fluid motion. Surrounded by his fallen enemies, Chen Zhao stands victorious and completely unbothered. After a brutal exchange, Chen Zhao lands a decisive blow that leaves the blonde-haired thug bloodied and incapacitated on the ground. Paralyzed by fear as he looks up at the weapon in Chen Zhao's hand, the thug desperately shouts that he wouldn't dare commit murder in broad daylight with so many witnesses watching. Looming over his defeated foe with total indifference, Chen Zhao coldly mocks the idea of taking his life, asking the man if he truly believes he is significant enough to be killed. With the entire group of thugs lying broken and defeated in the street, Chen Zhao walks away without a second glance, remarking that killing such pathetic people would only serve to dirty his hands. Chen Zhao walks away from the defeated thugs, coldly stating that killing them would be too merciful. He notes that in the current weather, their open wounds will likely lead to severe infections and sepsis. He soon arrives at a desolate industrial site, a complex of weathered brick buildings and heavy machinery baking under the afternoon sun. The location is identified as the West District Factory, where he finds a large, rusted shutter door that seems to be the main entrance. As he approaches the facility, Chen Zhao stops when he spots a security camera mounted on the wall, realizing that he is being watched. With a precise flick of his fingers, Chen Zhao unleashes a sharp blue energy blade that instantly shatters the security camera. Standing before the factory entrance, he releases a flurry of devastating energy strikes that illuminate the entire area with blinding light. The sheer power of the attack carves through the massive metal shutter, creating a dark, gaping opening into the facility. Chen Zhao slips through the narrow gap and into the shadows, casting one final glance back as he infiltrates the factory. Upon entering the warehouse, Chen Zhao is immediately engulfed by a thick, noxious smoke that begins to fill the room from below. He quickly realizes the gravity of the situation as he struggles to breathe, identifying the substance as a lethal poison gas. Overwhelmed by the fumes, Chen Zhao drops to one knee and curses his mistake, realizing that the entire setup was a carefully laid trap. As his strength fades and his vision blurs, several mysterious, distorted figures emerge from the darkness to confront their weakened target. Weakened and struggling to breathe, Chen Zhao is completely defenseless as a mysterious figure in a gas mask approaches him. The stranger seizes Chen Zhao's arm, preparing to administer an injection while the protagonist remains incapacitated. With an ominous glow in his eyes and a chilling smirk, the masked man clearly enjoys having his target at his mercy. He mockingly asks Chen Zhao if he feels any better, explaining that while the nerve gas isn't fatal, the experience is certainly unpleasant. Chen Zhao demands to know who the strangers are, wondering if he was set up, though he notes they don't seem malicious. The lead man introduces himself as Lin Guodong, a biomedical researcher focused on human evolution in extreme environments. Lin reveals that he is the person in charge of the facility and introduces the woman with him as his student, Su Rui. Su Rui greets Chen Zhao with a simple hello as she retrieves a case of syringes, seemingly unbothered by the tense situation. Professor Lin explains the gas was a security measure and asks about the unique tool Chen Zhao used to cut through the door. Chen Zhao thanks him for the rescue while privately questioning the professor's role as a biomedical researcher. He surveys the area, noticing advanced refrigeration units filled with countless medical samples. Observing the smoke and glowing liquid, Chen Zhao begins to realize that this facility hides a dark secret. A massive, predatory skeleton on display hints at the unusual nature of the research facility. Surrounded by advanced tech and glowing chemical vats, Chen Zhao questions if this place is truly just for storage. Professor Lin leads him past racks of medical supplies, inviting him to take any medicine he needs. The professor offers the supplies as both an apology for the earlier security trap and a gift for their meeting. Taking advantage of Professor Lin's offer, Chen Zhao begins selecting the necessary medical supplies from the well-stocked shelves. He carefully packs a variety of medicine bottles and boxes into his backpack, ensuring he is fully prepared for what lies ahead. With his bag full, he offers a brief, cold word of thanks to the researchers before turning to make his exit. Chen Zhao walks toward the bright factory doorway, leaving the mysterious professor and his student behind as he steps back into the outside world. Professor Lin watches Chen Zio depart with a mysterious, lingering smile, whispering that they will surely meet again. The scene shifts to an apartment building bathed in the warm, orange glow of a fading sunset as birds circle through the quiet sky. Reaching his destination, Chen Zio turns the handle and pushes open the door, finally returning to the safety of his home. Once inside, he reflects on the encounter, acknowledging that while Professor Lin saved him and treated him fairly, something about the situation still feels uneasy. Chen Zio remains disturbed by the unsettling way Professor Lin looked at him, feeling certain that something is deeply wrong. He checks a homeowners group chat and finds a desperate plea from a neighbor willing to pay a high price for life-saving medicine. Knowing he has obtained several boxes of high-quality drugs, Chen Zio firmly decides that none of his stash is for sale. He carefully packs away his valuable medical supplies, prioritizing his own survival over making a profit during the crisis. Chen Zio suddenly freezes as a wave of suspicion washes over him. He immediately inspects the medical supplies inside his bag for anything out of place. His eyes widen when he spots a small, high-tech device hidden among the boxes.